Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the Eggplant AI webinar that we've put on today. As you can obviously see, this webinar is exclusively for AT&T employees. AT&T is a customer of Eggplant's. I'm the account manager here. My name is Danny. We'll also be having Auntie Edwards, our CTO, that's going to be presenting a little bit just about our vision, our roadmap, some of the new stuff that we've recently come out with, and then one of our technical consultants, Nick, that's going to be doing a bit more of an in-depth demo on Eggplant AI. So I guess for now, we can just go ahead and jump in and get started. I can pass things over to Anthony, and he can walk you guys through Eggplant AI to start off, and then we'll pass over to Nick from there. So as of now, Anthony, you can go ahead and jump in and get started. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm Anthony. I'm the CTO here at Eggplant, and thanks for joining me for this quick introduction to Eggplant and some of our key upcoming roadmap highlights. So the focus of today's webinar is really all on the upcoming new features on a roadmap update. But for those of you who are not familiar with Eggplant, I thought it's just worth spending a minute or two to give a bit of background to us, what our vision is, what our philosophy is, and where we're coming from. So Eggplant is all about helping people create and deliver amazing products that delight users and drive conversions, revenue, or whatever the purpose of your software is. Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, hey, what would be great is to produce some software today. What we're all doing is creating software that, meets someone's need, gets someone to do something, be it shop online, do their banking online, maybe auto drive a car, be entertained or get navigation while you're in a car. They're all for a human purpose, and what we're about is helping people create software that meets that purpose. Now, we believe this starts with testing and monitoring because fundamentally, these are the SDLC activities that focus on ensuring products are meeting their purpose. But I think testing and monitoring need to expand. They've become too focused on sort of the low-level technical and sort of process aspects, and they need to reframe, as I said earlier on, what's the fundamental purpose of this product we're trying to deliver. Testing and monitoring should be focused on making sure that products are meeting the needs of the users. We also need to expand testing and monitoring in terms of automation to be more productive and keep up with DevOps. We need to expand them to be able to predict the impact of products on users before they're released, before problems happen. And we need to expand them to not only identify problems, which is where they tend to focus today, but also recommend improvements and optimizations. So this is kind of our philosophy. We call it digital automation intelligence. And that's what this is all about. So there are 5 key principles of digital automation intelligence. Continuously analyze the full perspective. If you really want to understand software, how users engage with it, whether it's meeting its purpose, you need to really test it from that perspective, from the outside in. And you need to test the end-to-end flow, not just each component in isolation. That's not how products really work. You need to test the full end-to-end flow. And if you look in the media these days, there are a lot of high-profile sort of software fails. And typically what they come down to is that the individual components all work fine, but when someone put them together, they didn't work so well. So either they put a digital sort of system of engagement on top of a legacy system, and that kind of impedance mismatch didn't work. So the first principle is really testing products from the outside in an end-to-end fashion, using AI, machine learning, analytics to expand automation across the full app lifecycle, to put users at the center of testing by creating some automated feedback loops from production. Too much code is at the center of testing, or maybe requirements. We think users should be at the center of testing and monitoring, because that's what really matters. We want to use predictive analytics to forecast the impact of new releases on users and the business outcomes they're trying to achieve. There's so much data in testing. We should be using it to accurately predict what's going to happen, what's going to be the impact of this new release before we release it, or what's going to be the impact of this software tomorrow that's running live. And then finally, as I said before, improving apps and business performance by identifying optimizations. Again, we know the changes we've done in the past. We know what impact they have. Let's start using that knowledge in a coordinated fashion to help us produce better products. So what does that really look like? Well, here's sort of a bit of an architecture at the top. We've got a model. So everything we do at Eggplant is model-driven. We like to have a model of the product itself, what the business outcome you're trying to achieve, and how users interact with it. That goes into Eggplant AI, auto-generate scripts. goes into the engine that we have that tests functionality, performance, user experience. And we get this continual feedback loop there, which helps Eggplant AI really focus in on the areas where we're going to find defects. Then we gather information from lots of sources. We can add various tags to help sort of recommend AI to look in various places and to focus testing on the greatest areas of risk. And then we also do analytics to help us predict, what's going to happen if we release that software now. We've got a whole lot of information from the software development lifecycle, a whole lot of or sort of more the development process, but a whole lot of information from testing. We know what's happened in the past. Let's start using those metrics, using those heuristics to predict what's going to happen in live. Now, one of the really transformational aspects of where we're going is not only sort of doing that isolated testing bit in the lab, but bringing in the user perspective from production. So monitoring in live, synthetic monitoring to understand really how's the product behaving in live, and real user monitoring to understand what are users doing. So really know how is our product behaving in production, what are users doing. And then we take that and we can feed it back into the testing process. So what does that mean? That means looking at what are users really doing? What are the user journeys that most of our users perform, and feed that back into our Eggplant AI to auto-generate the right test. Understanding the thresholds. Maybe we're doing performance testing and we can really see, when response time goes above 3.2 seconds, that's when we really see people leaving our website. So that's the threshold we want to be testing for in the lab. The point of bringing monitoring is we can get that information really in on what matters in an automated fashion. So it's fast and again, focused on the user, focused on what really matters. And the really cool thing is when we have that information from live in the lab, we can start doing all kinds of predictive analytics. We can correlate the in the lab sort of technical metrics, which we get from testing, with the in the field technical metrics that we get from monitoring, and sort of understand what's going to happen with a new release. Understand that if we've got, version 3.4 and we've been testing for 3 days and we've found 5 critical defects, is that likely to be enough, or are there going to be more defects lurking in there? Should we test for another 2 days? We can start correlating those behaviors. We can also correlate sort of usability heuristics. Everyone sort of wonders that usability is very subjective. But if we can start correlating that with real measured user satisfaction, it becomes very analytical, and we can use it as a good predictor. So using that production information to predict how's my product going to behave in live, how's that going to impact my users, my user satisfaction, my positive business outcomes, so people buying things from my website or engaging with me online. And it's also through this predictive analytics that you can start getting to remedies and optimizations. And you can see that this bringing together of testing, i.e. in the lab, and monitoring in production is exactly what DevOps is all about. So really what we're talking about here is evolving testing, expanding testing and monitoring to be much more in line where we're all going in our DevOps transformation. So that's what we're all about. What are we actually doing? So I'm just going to give you the 7 high-level themes that we're working on at the moment, and then I'll go to some specifics and what you can expect to see from us. Expanding that Eggplant AI auto-generation of tests, focusing in using better algorithms to find bugs, get better coverage, and also auto-generation of snippets. So this is all about how can we auto-generate more of testing up front, and how can we focus that in to find more defects. Then it's release analytics. This is what I was talking about before, giving you confidence and visibility of if I release my software today, if I release my new version, what's going to happen, what's going to be the impact on user satisfaction, what's going to be the impact on quality, what's going to be the impact on positive business outcomes. User behavior and synthetic monitoring. So Eggplant actually acquired a company recently called Web Performance, who were all about user behavior monitoring, synthetic monitoring. We're integrating that into the suite now, and that's what's driving that. So big focus there. Usability testing, I mentioned this earlier. Everyone's always said, we should do usability testing, but it's a bit hard. It's all very subjective. But now that we've got this user data from production, we can start making that far more analytical and really help people get true user behavior. I think that's really important. Hosted testing platforms, expect to see a lot more cloud-based hosted platforms to help people get up and running faster and to really scale up their testing in a way that we're seeing a lot of our customers want to do. Make performance testing accessible. So many people still don't do performance testing. It's very frustrating. It's so important to user experience. But the reason is because we put a huge barrier in front of people. You have to be an expert in protocols, in web stack technologies, and all this kind of thing. Whereas if we can just make performance testing much easier to get some value quickly, reusing your existing test assets, I think that'll be helpful for everyone. And then finally, just making it real easy for everyone to take all this great stuff we've got, all these great products, and really combine them into solutions very, very focused on use cases. So regardless if you're doing sort of electronic medical record testing or mobile banking testing or set-top box testing or any of those kind of things, we've got a set of accelerators that just make it sort of minutes for you to take our products and get going. Right, so they're the big themes. Let's dive now right into some specific features to give you a feel. In Eggplant Functional 18.1, big focus is on auto image capture and snippet generation. Basically, this is all about this continual journey we're on just to automate as much of the test creation, the script creation process as possible. And I entirely believe that over the next few releases, we'll get to really a huge level, 100% ability to automate testing for traditional standard use cases. There'll be some tweaking for more complex ones, but I really believe that we're going to massively reduce the amount of effort required for scripting. So auto image capture is about going to a screen, understanding it, capturing all the different objects, the images, the X files, whatever sort of approach you want to take, and understanding what that screen is all about. And then it's about taking that, understanding the semantics of those things. Are they buttons, are they text fields, how they relate to each other, and then auto-generating the sort of the actual sense talk snippets, the sense talk code. So great feature in Eggplant Functional, all about auto-generation of scripts. In the following release 18.2, you see a lot of work going to usability analysis, as I talked earlier. So many of our customers are starting to go down the path of wanting to test sort of the human usability factors. I think this is really exciting. I think it's a natural progression on testing maturity, and we're adding a bunch of features to help people ensure that their website or their apps are complying with their style guidelines, but also standard good usability practice. So things like, is the contrast sufficient to be easily read based on accessibility guidelines? Do you have bad sort of font and background colors? Do you get tooltips obscuring stuff? There's a whole lot of basic rules of thumb in terms of good usability, good design, and given the very visual, user-centric approach of Eggplant Functional, we're a natural fit for that. So expect to see a whole lot of great stuff to help you deliver really great user experiences in 18.2. Other big thing coming is all around Eggplant AI. So for those of you who are not familiar with Eggplant AI, just 1 minute introduction. It starts with model-based testing. So it starts with a model of your application and the ability to auto-generate tests from that, which is obviously great. Once you've got that, though, the problem you get is you can generate millions of tests. So that simple model on your screen there can literally generate millions and millions of tests. So then you need to know, well, which ones should I run to get what I care about, which is finding bugs, increasing coverage. And that's where the AI, machine learning, and the analytics comes in. So we use these algorithms to understand what are the user journeys I should perform to find defects to get coverage. And there is Eggplant AI in action. We've got a model on the left, and we're auto-generating some tests. And on the right, you see an iOS device, and we're testing a retail application. You can see we're going into and out of maps. So testing the whole sort of end-to-end flow, as I talked about earlier. Another great thing that's coming in the next version of Eggplant AI 2.1 is sort of auto performance testing. So Eggplant AI knows exactly what's going on. It knows what actions are happening when we're changing screens. So we realize it's really easy for us to sort of add timing measurements onto that, understand regressions and so on. So if you're testing via Eggplant AI, basically you'll get performance regression testing, responsiveness testing for free. Just again, ever reducing the amount of effort, automating that kind of mechanical stuff so that testers can spend their time on the higher level stuff and making sure that the products are meeting their needs. A lot of improvements going into the Eggplant AI algorithms around bug hunting. For those of you not familiar with it, the basic way, you should think about it like a recommendation engine. So what Eggplant does is it starts executing tests and it starts identifying where defects are being found. And then it looks for paths through the code that look similar. So for example, let's say every time you go to a screen, hit the back button and go forward again, you find a defect. Eggplant AI will recognize that as a pattern and then start exercising that all over the app. Maybe if it finds a screen that has lots of text fields and then what looks like a submit button and it finds that's very buggy, it'll look for other forms in the application and exercise those. So some more improvements to those bug hunting algorithms. We realized that under those bug hunting algorithms, what we're effectively doing is identifying the key risk factors for where defects live in your application, and we should expose that. So in Eggplant AI 2.2, we'll be presenting to the user, to the tester, our analysis of what is causing the risk in this application. Is it a certain component? Is it a certain programming language that seems to lead to lots of defects? Is it a certain size of requirement? Maybe it's not a big requirement. Maybe it's requirements that don't seem to have had much analysis. Maybe it's components which have had more than 3 people submit code for in the last few days. Whatever it is, we can identify those. I think that's going to be really helpful for people to bring back in their retrospectives through their scrums and their sprint meeting. Coverage is a big topic. Originally, when Eggplant AI came out, we really focused just on bug hunting, but we had a lot of people saying, hey, I want to optimize for coverage as well. It's what I know, and I want to keep doing that. So we've put a lot of work into giving people a lot more control over coverage. What does coverage mean to you? Everyone sort of says coverage as if it's a very well-defined thing. Everyone has their different model of coverage, sort of pairwise or, 3rd order or all sorts of different things. So what is the coverage metric you're interested in, and how do you want us to weight that? Do you want us to do all the coverage and then do bug hunting, or mix and match? So we're going to give you guys a lot more control over coverage and let you know where you are. The final thing I want to highlight is just Eggplant Analytics. So over the next few months, you'll see the first release of Eggplant Analytics, and this is that dashboard I was talking to you about before, which is all about what would happen if you released your product now. If you release your app now, would you get 3 out of 5 stars or 5 out of 5 stars in the App Store? Would performance go up or down as perceived by real users in the field? Quality go up or down? And what's been the trend? It's give you a lot more information for those release management meetings to help you make informed and intelligent decisions. So that's all from me. Hopefully you see there's a lot of exciting things going on with Eggplant. If you've got any feedback or any other things you'd like to see or suggestions on how we could do this stuff even better, please get in touch. We'd love to hear from you, and hope to talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate that. As of now, we're going to be moving into Nick's portion. He's going to dive a little bit deeper and do a live demonstration of Eggplant AI against a few different types of applications. I'd also just like to mention that if you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to type them into the GoToWebinar panel. We're going to be answering questions right at the end before we're done with the whole webinar. So feel free to type them in, and we'll get to as many as we can right at the end of the webinar. So thanks, and as for now, I will pass it over to Nick so you can go ahead and get started.
All right, thanks so much, Danny. And thanks, Anthony, for the introduction. So Danny, could you just let me know when you see my screen and that you can hear me okay?
Yep, I can see your screen, I can hear you.
Excellent. So again, thanks to Danny and thanks to Anthony for setting this webinar up, and thanks, of course, to the attendees that we have on the line today. This is, a really great topic for us to be discussing, in particular because there are so many exciting things on our product roadmaps, as Anthony kind of just covered off. But of course, right, we have current products, and that's what I'm going to focus showing you today, the Eggplant AI application. And like Danny said, we're going to see it running against a few different types of devices and applications. So what you see on my screen right now is actually just a smattering of devices that I'm connected to. These devices, for the most part, are set up in our Boulder, Colorado engineering facility, and these are maintained by the technical consulting team so that we can put on webinars and do testing, use these devices for demonstrations and other kinds of work like that. So all of these devices that I'm connected to, they're familiar devices, but they're very different technologies. So, we have 2 mobile devices here that we'll take a look at today, a Samsung tablet and an iPad, and these are, of course, really common, modern consumer devices. We have Windows desktop. Many, I should say, of our customers live in a predominantly Windows environment. Thick desktop application testing, web application testing across different browsers. Lots of it is being done on the Windows platform, so we'll take a look at some Windows tests today. And finally, we have a point of sale terminal that we have set up in the Boulder, Colorado facility as well. So really one of the messages that I'd like to communicate just at the outset here is that Eggplant is not a tool or that should be aimed at an automation solution that should be aimed at just a single endpoint. Really the goal of Eggplant is to be able to test lots of different digital endpoints. Really any digital endpoint that you have is in scope for test, and that's one of the great benefits of using this kind of a model-based approach for testing your applications. So we'll go ahead and start off. I think really one great way of understanding what's going on with Eggplant AI is to see it in a few of these different scenarios and then draw some similarities for yourself. So to start off, let's go ahead and just jump over to the Eggplant AI interface, and we'll talk a bit about this, and then we'll start executing some tests so that you see how these different pieces come together. So right now I have an example model set up. This is a model of the Walmart e-commerce store, and what you see here is a connection between various states and actions in the model. So those are really, for an introduction, those are the two main things that you have to be familiar with when you're thinking about what is a model in Eggplant AI. You see these larger boxes. We have this initial green box and then these larger purple boxes. We call these states in Eggplant AI. I'll go ahead and just click on them and you'll see the different states get highlighted. In Eggplant AI, when we're building a model, states generally correspond to different application screens that a user would interact with. So we'll start this test against the Walmart e-commerce platform, and what you'll see is that the test is going to begin at this initial state, and it's going to achieve this navigate web action, which lives in initial state. And when we navigate the web and achieve this action, then we're going to come along this red connection line here between navigate web and the home state. Now, home state here represents an actual screen of the application that we're going to be looking at. And this is, as it's named, the home screen for that particular application. So what I'll do is I'll actually just go ahead and run the model just so that we can see it executing here. There's a lot of feedback coming through the UI when we're using Eggplant AI, and this is really helpful from the tester's perspective to know what exactly is going on during a test. And what you see is that the different portions of the model are getting highlighted in a particular order. And that ordering is determined by the AI algorithms. That's the AI machine learning analytics engines all at work here and determining what is the path that we're going to take for this particular run through the model. All of that's being influenced by the AI and the machine learning and the analytics. And when a particular action is being achieved in the model, like this back action in account panel, you can see that that portion of the model gets highlighted. So right now we're in home grocery, and what we're doing is we're finding a path through this model to do a few things. One, we're looking to get good application coverage, test coverage. Two, we're looking to do sophisticated bug hunting. And three, we're being influenced by those other things like previous runs. Where have we been before? Did we find any bugs in areas? And have we weighted any of these actions in the model to be more significant than others because we maybe expect users to use a particular portion of the application more than others? So this is what Eggplant AI looks like when you've built out a model and that model is executing, right? You get a very clear understanding of where we are in the model through the highlighting. And basically this path through the model is going to keep winding through the different areas of the application until we hit an exit point in the model. And you can see up here on the top right of my model, I have two actions, a kill browser and an impair network action. These are both global actions in the sense that what I've done is I've put them outside of any state in particular. They're just at the model level. And these actions can be performed at any time during the test. So we could be navigating the Walmart e-commerce platform and then all of a sudden kill the browser as a user might do, or experience a network impairment. This kill browser action you can see actually is one of the exit points for the model. So that's the endpoint for any iteration through this model. We'll always start at the initial state, find our way through the model intelligently, looking for bugs and getting coverage, and then eventually hitting an exit point to the model. Now, as that model is executing, there are some things going on the system under test. So this particular model is built against the desktop platform. And actually, in this case, what we've done is we built this model to be able to accommodate two different browsers. We've built this model to accommodate the Chrome and the Firefox browser. So there's lots of ways to do that. And there are lots of ways to make these models very complex under the hood so that we're achieving all of these actions in the various different scenarios it is that we need to test. What I'll do is just go ahead and stop this model, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at Eggplant AI running against a different system here. So we are all familiar with desktop testing, but in the mobile device, what does this look like, and what would a mobile application look like? So you can see in the Eggplant AI interface, I have several different models that I've built up. I can select any of these models, navigate to the particular model, and then take a look at that model. Now, this model is built up of the CNN mobile application. Here you can see that we have a number of different global actions, again, that can happen at any point in time during the test. In mobile device testing, something that is an unexpected action from users is sometimes switching the device between landscape and portrait mode. So you can see that we have these global actions that would have a user move the mobile device to a different orientation anytime during the test case. That's a really cool portion of the test case that we would want to emulate with Eggplant AI. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead, open my CNN application model here, and instead of watching the model execute this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute the model, but then take a look at the mobile device so that we can see Eggplant AI not only working through the model, but so that we can see the mobile device getting automated as we move through this test. And looks like I just need to reset things here for a moment, so just give me one moment. So I'll go ahead and start my Eggplant AI agent. What that does is it enables my models to be connected to the different automation assets that I've built to control the systems under test. So I'll start that Eggplant AI agent, and then Eggplant functional will get launched for me. And from there, I'm able to connect to any of those mobile devices. The one mobile device that we were connected to was the iPad Air here. Great. And we'll start that model. So the first thing we're going to do is start in that initial state and launch the particular CNN application. Now the window on the bottom left of the screen here is bringing us through line by line of the automation code that's actually getting executed and that's connected to the model itself. So when the model is selecting a particular action, right, when the AI algorithms have selected a particular action in the model, that action is related to some steps that a test would include. So launching an application involves a few things. It involves making sure we're on the home screen, for instance, making sure that CNN app shortcut is actually on the home screen. If it's not on the home screen, navigating to the proper screen where we can find the CNN application, and then performing that user tap action on the UI of the device to actually launch the application here. So you can see we're doing a few things. Some of the stuff that's happening in this test is user experience related. Some of it's functional test driven. But the feedback that you're getting here is all from the user perspective. So you'll see Eggplant occasionally highlighting different UI elements on the screen. There's a mobile device flip that's happening from our global actions up here. And it's these particular variations and permutations of workflows that Eggplant AI is so good at creating and going ahead and executing for us, right? Typical workflows might not include a mobile device turn, or maybe you might have, a regression pack that has you flip the mobile device in a very specific time or a very specific area of the workflow. This is just, a good, I think, illustration of how we would introduce these global actions at those variable times. And I'm just going ahead and running a few more iterations through this model so that we can see this executing a few times. So again, launching, we're testing through the eyes of the user here. We're looking at the screen just like a user would, and we're really ensuring that user experience is as we want it to be. So the positioning of these different UI elements, their look, their feel, you can see Eggplant looking for all of the abilities to share a story here, and then validating the different ways at the OS level that those options are available, in fact. And all the while, on the left-hand side, you can see the model's actually executing. We're stepping through different states, different actions, because when we see a state like this, or when we experience the application like this, we are in a particular application state. So again, that's how these different model boxes here, the larger states and the smaller actions, are related to the applications themselves. So the last thing I want to show is Eggplant AI working against a point of sale terminal. I'll go ahead and jump over to the point of sale terminal now. So in my Eggplant functional connection list, I'll select the point of sale terminal. Lots of ways for me to do this. There's of course a way for me to do this in the background. When we're not viewing these tests in live time, we can have Eggplant just reach out to these machines that we want to test without us going ahead and doing that manually. And again, one of the points here is that the kind of systems and technologies that we're testing, they really are very different. This e-point of sale platform is built for Windows, so there's actually a Windows machine running under this. We have mobile devices, all different platforms, and the devices that we're testing on those systems are also, or rather the applications we're testing on those systems are also very different. Some of them are, oops, and I've executed the wrong model here. Some of them are web-based applications. Some of them are native applications. Some of them are a blend, right? Some a mixed application. And those applications, all of them are in scope because we're testing this from the user perspective. And the great thing about that is that this one approach works across all of these different technologies. So a really common scenario here you can see in this model that we face is some kind of a login screen. And there are different ways to log in, to applications, different users, different credentials to use. Here's one example of how we might model logging in as different users in Eggplant AI. So you can see at the initial home screen for our point of sale terminal, we actually have 3 different options. We can log in as a cashier, a manager, and a supervisor. Doesn't matter whether this is in a point of sale environment or just at a regular old login portal, But this very same kind of model logic can be used to go ahead and create 3 different kind of user IDs to log in with, or that kind of information can be stored in lots of different ways. We can store that in a data file, we can store that in a database, some kind of a truth source, and pull that information in during a test. So I'll go ahead and kick the model off. We'll see Eggplant again selecting a path through the model by highlighting the different paths that it's going through. And at this point, we're entering a pin on that point of sale terminal. So our run window comes up on the bottom left again. It tells us which line of code is getting executed for each part of this test. And for each part of the test, what we see is a different kind of a flow. I think the point of sale is a really great case because it's very clear to see how the model would be built out, right? We have particular actions and we have particular screens like a drinks menu, a dashboard once you're signed in as a cashier or a manager, a food menu, and so on, and then a payment screen. All of these, logically make a lot of sense next to one another, and it kind of makes sense just, to us pretty straightforwardly how when a cashier taps on the drinks section, he's going to come over here to the drinks menu and then has the ability to come back. The models are, for the most part, very simple to understand like this. And oftentimes when we're working with teams, we hear back from them that it was a really great exercise, to go ahead and think about the model, think about the application. It was just kind of this nice meta exercise as part of the test process anyway. So we've seen Eggplant AI models. We've seen them executing against different kinds of applications. One thing that we haven't looked at yet, though, are the results that are generated from these kind of runs. So I'll go ahead over here and click on Coverage Report. And what that's going to do is it's going to show me all of the different places that my iterations have visited in the model. So this is one of the main ways that we're mapping coverage. Coverage is relative to the model that we've created. And you can see in the coverage report, the different coverage that we have for a given state and the actions in that state. You can see how many times a particular action was executed in a state, how many times that state was visited. And if we haven't visited all of the places in a particular state, then that's something that you'll see too. So here you'll see we haven't performed any cash transactions, and that's going to be seen as a gap in our heat map. So all of the places that we visited in this application model, they're all dark blue, except for the cash action. And chances are, if we ran a few more iterations through this model, Eggplant AI is going to want to go ahead and try to achieve a cash payment here, because that's one portion of the model, one portion of the application that we haven't tested yet. So that would be an instance of the coverage algorithms really driving where we go in future iterations. This coverage report related to the things that Anthony was talking about, but really a very helpful test asset for you to take into your test meetings up to management and really readily understand what kind of coverage do we have in our testing, are there major gaps, and where are those gaps if there are any. So I'll go ahead and remove that heat map. So we've seen quite a bit. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and start a model execution in the background. And Danny, I suppose we can open it up to questions at this point, because I know I expect that there are going to be a few coming in on this topic.
Sure. Yeah, there's a few right here. Let me just pull them up. Okay, so first question on here. Can you use Eggplant AI to test mobile simulators and emulated applications, or just physical devices?
Yeah, it's a great question. So all of the technologies that I showed today, all but this Windows 7 VM, were real physical devices. So those mobile devices, that point of sale terminal, those are physical machines, and we can test those. But we can also test any kind of a virtual application or system like this virtualized Windows 7 machine. We can test mobile emulators and simulators, and for a lot of tough use cases like testing against in-vehicle infotainment systems or testing of very secure systems, what we do is we sometimes go ahead and test an emulated version of that application, or we use some kind of a video capture and test that video capture stream that we're able to pull into a desktop. So all of that is supported. We can test emulations, we can test simulators, and we can test physical devices.
Okay, cool. See, the next one on here is, can you use Eggplant AI to test more than one device at a time?
Testing the user experience in today's environment really often involves testing more than one device. And common scenarios that we see are an interplay between more than one mobile device, interplay between a desktop system and a mobile device. So you think about logging into your Walmart profile here, adding an item to the cart on the desktop, and then validating that when you log into a mobile device, that you can see that that item has been added to your cart. So using more than one system in that manner, very common in today's testing world. I'm sure everyone on the line is familiar with those kind of scenarios. The good news is that yes, in fact, we can include more than one system in a particular test here. And in fact, there are really no limit to the number of systems that we can reach with a model or that we can test with Eggplant AI. So if you think about it, one thing that we might do is have a particular portion of the model reach out to a particular device or to a particular technology. So we might have a model where one state goes ahead and performs an action on a desktop system or a mobile system, and then the state that we return to actually is another system in the environment that we want to go ahead and validate against. So certainly possible, certainly something that's very easy to do with Eggplant. As you can see, we can test all of these technologies and endpoints as standalone technologies, but we can also create tests that has these devices communicating and working in orchestration.
Okay, cool. And there's one more that we've got on here. It is, does Eggplant AI integrate with Jenkins and test case management tools? If so, how?
Yes, definitely. So I think, just conceptually, I think of that in two main ways, Danny. The first point of integration is, using a tool like Jenkins to actually initiate, kick off a test, right? Begin a test execution. So what would that look like for Eggplant AI? Essentially it's pretty simple. Jenkins would be used to communicate to Eggplant AI, and we would start the execution of a model that we've built out. So really Jenkins would act as the trigger for this model to begin executing. The model would run for a specified amount of time or for a specified amount of time, and then it would run some particular paths that the testers have set up in the model to run in particular, and then results would get either passed back to Jenkins or to those other tools that you mentioned. So that would be the second part of the integration. We've kicked off the test by initiating the model execution. When the test is complete, the second point of the integration would really be getting those results, any significant passes or failures through the model, back into the tool, into the solution that we're using to maintain results. And an integration on that side is certainly possible as well. We have customers who are using Eggplant AI and then automatically logging defects in their defect management trackers, for instance.
Okay, cool. Well, those are all the questions that we had that came through. As you'll see up on the slide, so these are all of our emails. Feel free to get in touch with us if you have any other questions that have come to mind, or if you want to try out Eggplant AI, that's another thing that you're welcome to do. Just shoot us an email. We can get you over a link so that you can go ahead and get it up and running quickly. You can even use one of our hosted systems that we have in our lab so you can try it out quickly. So feel free to get in touch, or we'll be sending a follow-up email with a little bit more information on this. I appreciate having everyone join today. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Anthony, for presenting your piece of this. Hope to get in touch with everyone soon. Thank you, guys.